代表了人类创造性的天才杰作，能在一定时期内或世界某一文化区域内展示人类作品。
الهندسة المعمارية والتقنية أو الفنون الأثرية أو تخطيط أو
Very unique or at least exceptional testimony to a culture and tradition or to a civilization which is living or which has disappeared.
Offrir un exemple éminent d'un type de construction, d'ensemble architectural ou technologique ou de paysage illustrant une ou des périodes...
Представлять собой выдающийся образец традиционного человеческого поселения, землепользования или использования моря, характерного для той или иной культуры или культур, взаимодействия между человеком и
culturas
природой.
o interacción humana con el medio ambiente, especialmente cuando se ha vuelto vulnerable bajo el impacto de un cambio irreversible. Estar asociado directa o tangiblemente con acontecimientos o tradiciones vivas, con ideas o con creencias, con obras artísticas y literarias de destacada importancia universal.
Every year, typically as the moon draws nearest to the Earth in spring and autumn, Venice is at risk of flooding by the Acqua Alta. Walkways for pedestrians must be in place at dawn before the Piazza San Marco is inundated. Venice was born from the sea. Since refugees started coming to the lagoon over 1,000 years ago, the city has been rooted in the sea. The Rialto fish market, located in the center of the city, has a history of over 600 years. Most vendors are fishermen from the nearby islands. Rialto used to be the business hub for Venetian merchants, a place where the price of spices and news from distant parts formed the hottest topics of conversation. The sea gifted Venice plentiful food and eventually fabulous wealth. German writer Hasse exclaimed after visiting Venice, "It's so beautiful, fascinating and dreamlike that one can't help worrying that this miraculous city upon water may be illusory and disappear all of a sudden like a rainbow in clouds." Sand and water were once used to measure time. Today they continue to serve as witness to the passing of time. Camel thorn and rose willow now grow where residences, pavilions, mansions, and temples used to stand. The forces of wind, sand and time have driven the ancient city underground.
太遥远，这两个城市太遥远。它是个水城，威尼斯；我们这是个沙漠之城。就是我们的古城就是都是夯土，啊，或者是以土为主要的这个材料。河西走廊啊，以西它还是比较干燥的，就适合于这种土建筑。但是土建筑呢，它相对于石造建筑或者砖石建筑，它的保存 那肯定是保存会差一些。
Dun Huang, in the northwest of China, has a history of more than 2,000 years. It is an oasis city surrounded by the Gobi Desert. Now the desert is encroaching by 4 meters every year. Each spring, strong winds blow across the dry desert surface, causing dust and sand to fill the sky.
And Dun Huang was a sleepy little town of absolutely nobody was there. It's a long way from the train. And then we had a very long bus ride. And I remember there was a sandstorm and some sand got into the engine and the driver had to clean out the engine. So you did have a sense that you were really a very long way from anywhere. I mean, it's different now, but, you know, just a little dirt road, nothing. I think, as I say, English people like solitude, they like emptiness, they like quiet, and Dun Huang was perfect.
25 kilometers southeast of Dun Huang city, the Dangtran River flows between Sunwei Mountain and the singing sand dunes of Mingsha. Along the river's west bank is a cliff face running north to south for a little over a mile. The cliff is home to 735 caves.
And Dun Huang is different in the sense that the great thing at Dun Huang is actually the caves. You know, the significance of the town actually lies outside the town. It's a hidden treasure, you know, that you have to go into each cave, and then each cave is a complete revelation. It shows us the development of religious painting, of Buddhist painting in China from sort of 300 up to 1,000 or so. This incredibly long period, about 1,000 years of religious art, perfectly preserved. You know, the atmosphere is dry, is safe. The paintings are simply miraculous.
These caves are time capsules containing the memory of old Dun Huang. Outside them, a city has reincarnated on its ruins, and within, everything seems to be as colorful as yesterday.
Ciao, parla Sambo al Centro Maree. Mi dici il tuo cognome? Pronti? Buongiorno, parla Sambo al Centro Maree. Abbiamo 2 avvisi di marea, uno per questo pomeriggio, questo domani pomeriggio, sì. Domani pomeriggio 16:55. Grazie, scusami. Grazie mille. Ciao, buona giornata.
Questo è il centro previsioni e segnalazioni maree. Questo è l'ufficio che da più di 30 anni si occupa di fare le previsioni del livello di marea a Venezia, ed è la marea più alta del Mediterraneo qui a Venezia. E in più la conformazione, dicevo, del bacino dell'Adriatico, che come vedete dalla mappa è bloccato da catene montuose, che sono gli Appennini, le Alpi Dinariche e poi le catene montuose delle Alpi, fa sì che si convogliano dei venti che vengono come canalizzati proprio come in un canale stretto, il famoso vento di Scirocco per i veneziani tanto temuto. Questi venti sono venti che provengono dal sud-est e hanno la capacità di spingere e di fare in modo che si accumuli acqua, un'onda di marea sulla parte nord dell'Adriatico. Quando questi fenomeni si sommano, marea astronomica, la marea da vento intenso, a Venezia si può verificare il fenomeno dell'acqua alta. Questo è l'anno 550 d.C. Questo è il numero di eventi mareali superiori ai 140 cm sullo zero di riferimento nei 50 anni, pochi anni dopo la fondazione della città fino ai giorni nostri. Quindi sono più di 1500 anni di valori di marea ricostruiti e come si vede ci sono stati diversi periodi in cui la marea si è presentata in fenomeni importanti, nel 1200, nel 1400, nel 1500, quindi la città sa convivere con l'acqua, abbiamo una capacità di resilienza che è notevole perché è un elemento comune. D'altra parte, se non ci fosse l'acqua, gran parte della laguna probabilmente sarebbe anche morta perché ha bisogno di questi eventi mareali che ossigenano e ripuliscono. Questa è una paratia per l'acqua alta, poi quando la miglia va a pressione e così l'acqua non entra. Quindi qui fino a 140 dal canale non entra, certo ci sono le onde, il problema però è che con 130 ci entra da di là.
The seawater is rising slowly to overwhelm the flood-resistant layer of Istrian stone and threatens to inundate the fragile clay bricks. Salt is eroding their structure and penetrating the bones of the buildings. Water, the soul of this city, is also gently dissolving it.
A casa dei miei genitori, dove io ho vissuto da bambino, quando ero bambino piccolino, quando avevo 5-6 anni, io avevo la palla e gli autini che dal salotto cadevano in corridoio. Quando ero più grande era dal corridoio che andavano al salotto, perché le parti della casa si sono alzate e si sono mosse.
Venice was built on the Corrento clay of its lagoon. With the accumulative sedimentation of this geological layer, the foundations of the city are naturally sinking. The process is aggravated by geological movement in the area and human exploitation of underground resources. At the same time, global warming is causing the sea level to rise. Between 1890 and 2016, the sea has already risen nearly 40 centimeters.
Se noi seguiamo il trend di aumento del livello medio del mare che stiamo registrando dal 1920 ad oggi, noi fra 50-60 anni potremo passare da una media 70 allagamenti annuali di Piazza San Marco a 400 allagamenti di Piazza San Marco, vuol dire mattina e sera.
British writer Jan Morris once imagined the disappearance of Venice. I see her still obeying her obvious destiny, unfolded last by the waters she espoused, her gilded domes and columns dimly shining in the green, and at very low tides, perhaps the angel on the summit of the Campanile to be seen raising his golden forefinger above the mud banks. $19 billion years ago, this was ocean. Then the land was pushed up and the water receded. When the raised land sunk again, it formed the basin of a lake, raised in the south and north, deepest in its middle. The mud, sand and rock that once formed the seabed were exposed to extremes of heat and cold along with the fierce winds, gradually eroding into desert. As summer arrives and the snow melts, meltwater from the western section of the Qilian Mountains flood into more than 370 streams. They converge to become a subterranean watercourse before gushing out somewhere near Yanxiwan in Gansu province. This becomes the Dunhuang River, the mother river for Dun Huang. The Dunhuang River runs south to north for 390 kilometers, winding its way into the vast Gobi Desert. From the 2nd century BC, people around the Dunhuang River began to build reservoirs to irrigate their farmland. The Dunhuang River is the lifeline of the man-made oasis around Dun Huang, as well as feeding many natural oases.
总体上，水资源总量的敦煌大概有4.4亿立方米，人均水资源量大概在2300方。2300方的概念呢，略微高于全国人均水资源占有量。在敦煌地区，强烈的蒸发，人的生存也好，植物的生长也好，要消耗大量的水资源的量。就在甘肃的这个东面。 1亩土地一年需要的水资源的量大概在100多方、200方就足够了。敦煌你要保证农作物的正常生长，1亩地至少要灌溉800到1000方的水，这就是4、5倍的概念呐。
In 1970, Dun Huang started to build a reservoir upstream of the Dunhuang River to mitigate the problems of the agriculture. Construction lasted 27 years and cost the lives of 18 people, the youngest being just 16 years old. Dun Huang's water has been paid for in blood. In Dun Huang, agricultural irrigation depends both on the Dunhuang River and the underground water. The river water is limited, so a large portion of the shortfall has to be made up from underground water.
上世纪的60年代后期，敦煌这个地方接受了不少的移民。随着人口的增加，土地开垦量也在增加。就是70年代吧，敦煌地区那个绿洲范围内抽取地下水的井是400盐，而到2000年，抽水井呢成了多少？1200盐。
Humans need water to survive. With a growing population, water demand also increases rapidly. The quick expansion of man-made oases could cause natural oases in the area to dry up. Amid the dunes of the Singing Sands in Kumtag Desert lies a prime example. The Crescent Spring was a feature of Dun Huang from the 3rd century. It's never been sanded over and never dried up. According to research data, its water level rises and falls with that of the downstream of the Dunhuang River and the underground water in Dun Huang. If the crescent spring dries up, Dun Huang itself will be doomed to become desert. On the other side of the world, where the River Po meets the Adriatic, there are several shoals separated by narrow waterways. They are submerged or rise out of the water with the rise and fall of the tide. They're a product of the Brenta, Piave and Po rivers wrestling with the sea. The silt they bring to the estuary fends off the waves, while the sea pins back the silt. This wrestling match leads to a balance between rivers and sea. Over thousands of years, sand has accumulated in the no-man's land of this contest, lifting a long, narrow barrier island from the sea like a stage. The crescent of water in the embrace of this barrier island is called the lagoon. Venice, the pearl of the Mediterranean, was built on the sandy shoals of the lagoon.
Una laguna non dura nel tempo. Una laguna è una fase transitoria dell'equilibrio costiero. Una laguna naturalmente scompare, finisce, o perché vincono i fiumi e allora la laguna si interra, o perché vince il mare e la laguna diventa mare. Allora, per impedire che diventasse terra, i veneziani hanno deviato i fiumi che entravano in laguna. Hanno estromesso il Piave a nord, il Brenta a sud, persino il Po, hanno deviato il Po. E queste sono le lingue di terra, isole lunghe, strette, si chiamano i lidi. Se non ci fossero questi lidi, il mare avrebbe invaso la laguna e avrebbe distrutto Venezia.
At the end of the 18th century, to defend against sea erosion, 3 sections of massive stone walls, about 16 kilometers long in total, were built along the outside edge of the barrier island. These walls, called murazi, were built with the erosion-resistant Istrian stone. They stand between the lagoon and the sea and have become a special attraction in Venice. However, they cannot prevent floods during the Acqua Alta.
Venice, Venice, when thy marble walls are level with the waters, there shall be a cry of nations o'er thy sunken walls, a loud lament along the sweeping sea.
In early November 1966, Venice suffered an unprecedented rainstorm. According to the Ponte della Dogana watermark, the seawater rose to almost 2 meters above normal. It flooded up from low-lying areas of the city, drains and between the stone paving slabs. the northeast Italian plain was severely affected. Toscana and Venice were particularly heavily hit. The flood caused damage to 885 pieces of the most important artworks and over 700,000 volumes of records at churches, libraries, and academic institutions. Included in this were around 10,000 pieces of immeasurable scientific and historical value. The danger of Venice being swallowed by the sea appeared before people's eyes.
No, io dico che non è possibile che sparisca Venezia.
Resterà sempre, quella sempre.
No, scomparirà mai Venezia. È nata 1000 anni fa e continuerà ancora per tanti, tanti millenni.
Vediamo. L'unica cosa da dire sarebbe che tristezza.
A product of 2,000 years of civilization, Venice can neither be relocated nor reconstructed. To save it, mankind must wrestle with nature, whatever the cost.
To save Venice with something that you don't have to see, don't have to impact with anything. So that was the challenge that we had to face.
In 2003, Venice began a bold attempt, the Mose Project. The aim was to install 79 movable sluice gates along 3 passages connecting the lagoon to the Adriatic.
And there are 3 gaps, Chioggia, Malamocco and Lido. It's very rapid. One flap can be elevated in less than 30 seconds. This means that in case of tsunami, the system is very much useful.
The movable plate of each gate contain a rise in sea level of up to 3 meters.
This is the only viable solution to an impossible problem.
Mose took 17 years to complete and became fully operational in the fall of 2020. Its efficiency may be tested at any time.
今天下午3点左右，甘肃敦煌地区出现强沙尘暴天气。从现场画面看，超100米的沙墙自北向南推进，短短几分钟，城市就被沙尘笼罩，整个画面变成了土黄色。受沙尘暴影响，当地能见度大幅下降，最严重的就笼罩了敦煌全市，白昼在瞬间变成了黑夜。下午15时30分许，阿克塞县境内也是出现了沙尘暴天气，出现一半气雾漫领、一半黄沙漫天的景象。
禁止所有车辆通行。昨天，世界文化遗产敦煌莫高窟启动强沙尘应急接待预案，暂停对外开放。 恢复开放时间将会根据天气情况另行通知。
In 1943, the Morgao Caves were a desolate and quiet place by the Dangtran River. Intense sun, extreme cold, and the relentless wind wore the luster from this pearl of the desert.
沙漠对它的危害就3种：风蚀、积沙和粉尘的危害。我在敦煌这个地方，我做了个气象站，我才发现金色沙就是3种风向的：西北风、西南风和东北风。 3种风向对敦煌莫高窟来讲，它至关重要的就是西北风和西南风把沙子吹到莫高窟窟顶，东北风把沙子又搬回鸣沙山了。所以为什么莫高窟1600年没被这个沙丘把它埋掉，可能被风沙流埋掉？还有这风沙流的风蚀，就风沙打磨这个岩壁，形成陡峭的那个岩面。 要说第3个危害的话，就是由于积沙造成的一个次生危害的粉尘。
粉尘可能钻洞窟里边壁画的空隙里边去了，粉尘带着碱性，一卷潮湿以后它膨胀，引起壁画里苏碱。
像开了花一样的那算是好症状。这就是气痂，它还没有完全破裂的那个样子，但是已经是造成气痂了。
对呀，他说你84岁了。
很慢，褪色很慢，很慢。我们一般动关的人，它只要不见光，它就不褪色。
湿度，
是关键就是这些病。你看那么干的地方，它的背后有湿气。我们做过实验，这下面没壁画了嘛，就那个石崖露出来，一直钻进去，钻到1米左右，就出水。你看这个东西你去不掉，头疼就在这儿。过去不是没人管吗？那个风沙也卷进来，那个你别看那个沙磨起来可厉害。你要东西没有了，你还能研究吗？最基本的还是先保了。我研究不好，你还可以研究，他也可以研究。看东西没有了，你研究啥也没有啊。
The National Dun Huang Art Research Institute, predecessor of the Dun Huang Academy, was founded in 1944. Its top priority was clearing the sand that had nearly buried the caves at Mogao. Up until the 1980s, they cleared around 4,000 cubic meters of sand a year. To block sand coming from the east and south, a 6,000-meter-long barrier was built between the Gobi Desert to the north of the Mogao Caves and the Mingsa Singing Sand Dunes. Over 1 million square meters of the straw checkerboard barrier stops the movement of the sand. In front of the barrier, 2 forests were planted as further shelter. Each was about 1,800 meters long and in excess of 10 meters wide, consisting of both trees and shrubs. Gravel was laid over 1 million square meters of empty desert to keep the sand down. An A-shaped prevention net was installed on top of the caves to prevent the sand from being carried in on the wind. The Academy also organized the reinforcement of the cliff face to form a robust protective shell against wind erosion. Between the 1980s and 2011, 6 east-west sand barriers were erected where the desert met the cliff. These man-made defenses against the desert have become tourist attractions in their own right. From the 17th century, Venice's commercial position began to decline. Instead, it became a city of pleasure for tourists. The tourists came, and still come, in great numbers. According to a research project by San Foscari University 30 years ago, Venice can accommodate for about 7.5 million tourists a year. Today, it has to receive 25 million to 30 million tourists in the same period.
le presenze, non gli arrivi, le presenze prenotanti sono di 10 milioni e mezzo circa, mentre stimiamo che ci siano circa un 15-16 milioni di day trip.
In September 2014, a reservation system was introduced at the Mogeo Caves, setting a limit of 6,000 visits per day. The emergency plan for peak season set a limit for 12,000 visits per single day. The entry tickets were soon sold out.
最高的时候，11黄金周有一天27000，那确实是排着长队，大家等待，排队可能就得好几个小时，进到洞窟里头，几分钟结束了。
啊，这是超标那个嘛，对吧？
是属于快。
就二氧化碳超标了。它那洞窟小，它洞窟小，它那游客一进去以后，它那个马上就反应了。这个二氧化碳呢，这个1500的这个预警值，现在是1600多，它这个闪黄灯，如果超过2000的话，它会闪红灯。尤其是10点以后，这个二氧化碳包括这个温度和相对湿度都有一个上扬的这种趋势。
The Dun Huang Academy carefully monitors the impact of tourists on the cave environments. For example, Cave 323 is 26 square meters and 143.1 cubic meters. When 40 tourists go into the cave for 37 minutes, the carbon dioxide is raised 7.5 times. The humidity goes up 10% and the temperature goes up 4 degrees centigrade. In peak season, the cave needs several hours to fully recover.
So 我们为啥特别关注这一点呢？并不是我们过于担忧或者过于保守，不是这样，因为它确实太脆弱，我们现在能力赶不上这种领域的发展带来的冲击。我们可能一时半会啊，你看不到它的影响。当你看到它的影响的时候，完了，已经来不及了。
Today, the rising sea level is not Venice's only challenge. There is a colossal challenge that has never appeared before. In 2013, before a ban on large cruise ships was implemented, as many as 600 cruise ships a year entered St. Mark's Bay, further stressing the city's foundations.
Il progetto delle trace che ho presentato in campagna elettorale è quello che è stato votato dai cittadini, conclude il sindaco, e il governo farebbe bene a tenerne conto.
Il più grande problema della laguna oggi è lo stato ecologico, l'inquinamento delle acque, l'inquinamento dei suoli, e questo è il problema più importante, ancora più importante dell'acqua alta. La laguna, tanti secoli fa, era composta da una varietà di forme. C'erano i fondali profondi, c'erano le barene, c'erano le isole. Invece, per colpa delle navi, per colpa delle onde, per colpa della velocità dei motoscafi, per colpa della pesca a strascico, il fondo della laguna per pescare le vongole, si va verso la scomparsa di questa varietà morfologica e la laguna si sta appiattendo, sta diventando un grande lago,
Sì, mio padre vendeva pesce anche lui, mio fratello vendeva pesce anche lui, circa 52 anni. Andavo a pescare quando finivo le scuole, quando avevo 10-11 anni, e i garusoli, vongole, cozze, go. Anni indietro c'erano tante passere che quest'anno non c'era neanche una. Prima eravamo circa in 50, 60, adesso saremo in 15 sicuramente. Murano c'erano 10.000 abitanti, adesso ce ne sono 2.500. Venezia è scomoda per uno che abita. Quasi tutti i veneziani si hanno venduto l'appartamento qui a Venezia, o la casa, e sono andati a abitare a Mestre, Mogliano, qui a Favaro, in tutta la zona, insomma.
Today, Venice gets 90% of its income from tourism and is overrun with tourists. In the 1950s, more than 170,000 people lived in the historic city of Venice. That figure fell below 50,000 for the first time in August 2022. Bakers, butchers and tailors, familiar to Venetians, were slowly squeezed out by souvenir shops.
Impensabile vivere in una città dove non trovi nulla per gli abitanti, ma solo per i turisti. A San Stefano, dove adesso noi stiamo, c'erano tutti i negozi di alimentari, di negozi per gli abitanti. Fuori andavo e c'erano tutti i negozi, ogni volta che ci passo mi si stringe il cuore perché vedo che lì c'era un negozio solo che vendeva dolciumi per bambini. Sono i sentimenti che può provare una persona che ci ha vissuto con la famiglia d'origine, che adesso è scomparsa perché i miei genitori non ci sono più, e che ha molti ricordi, ma i ricordi della famiglia che avevo si sommano ai ricordi della Venezia che avevo e che non c'è più. E quindi il dolore è amplificato.
È la città dove io sono vissuto, dove ho passato la mia giovinezza, dove ho visto di tutto, perché ho visto la guerra, ho visto un po' tutto, ho visto i momenti difficili, eccetera, ma è una città che risorge sempre, è sempre risorta.
C'è un conteggio fuori da una farmacia qui in Campo San Bartolomeo dove dicono quanti abitanti perde Venezia. Questo mese per la prima volta gli abitanti sono aumentati, di 23 ma sono aumentati.
敦煌剧院建立了77年，那么可以说77年的历史，敦煌剧院建院的历史，它也是一部保护史。莫高窟现在保存下来的壁画的面积有45000平米壁画，我们大致到目前为止修复的壁画大概是5000到6000的这样的一个平米的。但是这个修复就像那个绣花一样，你要你去参观，修复的这个工作是非常精细、非常缓慢的。我们的修复人员可能花几天时间才能完成，甚至更长时间才能完成1平米左右的这样一个壁画的修复。
I do think we should be sad about losing any kind of material thing. I mean, things with computers, you can say that will disappear, but of course it'll be replaced by a new one. But something, you know, like a Buddhist painting from the Tang dynasty, that's never going to need to be replaced. It should stand forever as a monument to that time, and Venice should stand forever as, you know, a moment in Italian architectural history.
我们今天的任务是啥呢？让它留得久一些，再久一些，让它留得完整一些，再完整一些。
We hope that we leave behind some achievement, some testimony to the fact that we were once alive. That's only human, I think.
Leva il giubbotto. Vai, molla.
E perché ho sulla gondola?
Questa va nella gondola. Testa? Questa è testa. Questa è la forcola. Morso. No, questo è il comio. Sottonaseo. Morso. Bravo. Batti 5. Perché non si camminava a Venezia, ma ci si spostava con le barche. Infatti io parto a insegnare la cultura del remo per capire poi Venezia. Ti senti parte proprio della laguna, ti senti parte e storia ogni volta che vai ad allenarti. Le metti così. Metti la gamba avanti e una indietro. Metti a posto le gambe, aprile bene, di più aprile. Bravo. Piega la gamba. Ok, sì. Sì. Bravo. Sì.
In 2008, the Dun Huang Academy launched a program to bring Dun Huang's cave art to schools. Its volunteers went to middle and elementary schools in Dun Huang and neighbouring rural and ethnic minority areas to teach children about Dun Huang's cave art and where they live. Dun Huang and Venice, our homes on the sand and sea, are also wonders of human civilization. Their existence testifies to an extraordinary history and carries forward our thinking, beliefs, and feelings.
Silvia è morta. Sì, vabbè, è già datata.